We're just waiting for a few more people to come on. Since you can't play golf today, we're hoping that they will be doing that. Well, with respect for everyone's time, we're going to get started. I want to thank you all for joining us this morning and welcome to the 18th annual reimagined DCTMA Municipalities Conference presented by the Crozier Keystone Health System. I'm Cecile Charlton, the Executive Director of the DCTMA, and I would like to thank our sponsors for their support in our efforts today. Asphalt Maintenance Solution, Visit Delco PA, PICO, TD Bank, WSP USA, Alfred Benich, Bowles Smythe Associates, the Drexelbrook Corporate Center, DVRPC, Mainline Health, Pannoni Engineers, Republic Bank, SEPTA, Stantec Engineering, Traffic Planning and Design, and Urban Engineers. Well, I think at this point, everybody is familiar with this virtual meeting process. You know how it works. We have everyone on mute and off video. You may enter any questions for our speakers at any time during their presentation in the Q&A section. I'll be reading your questions for the speaker after their presentations. This webinar does offer 2 professional development hours. The contact information for requesting your PDH certificates will be on the last slide at the end of the webinar. And just so you all know, you are being recorded. I want to thank especially my board of directors for all the support they've given me through the years. Our chairman, Dennis Wolf of Republic Bank, vice chair, Eric Ostomchuk, Traffic Planning and Design, secretary, Marion Salino, Values into Action, Joseph Maloney, Crozier Chester Health System, Michael Bunner, Franklin Mint Federal Credit Union, Linda Hill, the County of Delaware, Adam Gattuso, Monroe Energy, Shmuel Jackson, Delaware County Community College, Steve Cunningham, Jacobs Engineering, Christy Gillis, Rocky Run, YMCA, Armin Alessi, Mainline Health, Riddle Hospital, Keith Bruni, Philadelphia International Airport, Steve Neese, Newtown Township, John Grant, Stantec Engineering, Claire Nolan, Penn State Brandywine, Randy Prince, TD Bank, Joe Mastronardi, Pannoni Associates, Greg Lubold, Upper Providence Township, Jeffrey Rogan, Urban Engineers, Charlie Webb, SEPTA, Stacy Bartels, DVRPC, and Trish McFarland, Delaware County Chamber of Commerce. Hello. Now I'd like to start with a poll. When you work from home, who is your administrative assistant? Dog or other pet? Children? Roommate? Or Johnny Walker? We're supposed to have spouse on there somewhere, but I think we'll put them under roommate. So first up is Johnny. Okay, here we go. Okay, we got half the people vote. Here we go. Okay, we'll assume that the other ones are not going to be voting. So let's see what we have. It looks like the child or children wins. And I'm also surprised at how high Johnny Walker came in. But I think we can certainly understand that, given our situation here of late. It is my pleasure now to introduce our first speaker to you. Jacqueline Davis is a senior planner at the DVRPC in the Office of Comprehensive Planning. She will be talking about the DVRPC's Municipal Toolbox with information on safe, clean, and green implementation and the use of tax incentives. She plays a leading role in the development of the long-range plan for the Philadelphia region and manages the Central Jersey Transportation Forum, working towards improved and more integrated regional land use and transportation planning. Jacqueline holds a master's in urban environmental planning from the University of Virginia and a BA in political science from Penn State University with a certificate in environmental studies. Okay, thank you, Jacqueline.
Hi, thanks so much, Cecile. Thank you, Cecile and DCTMA, for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here with the other speakers, Lindsay and Kenneth. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with all of you. So hopefully you can see my slides. Again, my name's Jackie Davis. I'm a senior planner in the Office of Long Range Planning at Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. And I was asked to talk to you all a little bit today about our latest product in long range planning, Municipal Implementation Toolbox. So just a little bit of background on long-range planning at DVRPC. Our latest plan, Connections 2045, is the long-range plan right now for the Greater Philadelphia region, which establishes a vision for the growth and development of the region. It kind of serves as a blueprint for prioritizing transportation funding over the next 27 years. The plan's updated every 4 years through an integrated planning process, and there are 4 key main steps for updating the plan. The first is to identify trends and forces shaping the region. The second is to develop a collective vision and goals to inform decision-making. Then to recommend strategies and offer implementation tools. And the final step is to take action and track indicators, all while doing this with public engagement with our regional stakeholders, including counties, DOTs, TMAs, and the general public. And this is a 4-year cycle, so it's an iterative process. So on this graphic here, you can think of the inner circle, the trends and forces, et cetera, as our major step. The outer circle as the tools that we use to employ those steps. And then here's just a sampling of some of the products, services, and programs that DVRPC offers through its long-range planning program. The final step here is the implementation tools that we offer. And the one that I'll talk to you about today is the Municipal Implementation Toolbox for the long-range plan. So Connections 2045 outlines a future vision of the region based on analysis and trends of forces and public feedback. And the most prominent themes identified through that public engagement form the 5 core principles of our plan. Those 5 principles cover the environment, livable communities, the economy, equity, and transportation. And while they're all interrelated, each addresses its own issues and challenges with its own set of goals and strategies for implementation. So DVRPC is responsible for long-range planning at the regional scale and strives to implement the vision and policies of Connections 2045 through its work program and projects that we help to fund and allocate funding toward, while continuing to provide an array of services to counties, municipalities, and TMAs throughout the region. But we are painfully aware that implementing the plan is an ongoing process, and attaining the vision and goals outlined in the plan requires very much a shared effort, including individual actions. Implementation of the plan and much of our collective future is based on how the region's 352 municipalities use their home rule authority to influence things like land use, provide public services, and protect natural and historic resources, and ultimately just create the places that we call home. So municipalities are central to the implementation of any long-range plan that we put out. So there are 9 counties included in the DVRPC metropolitan planning area. And we stay very closely in touch with our county representatives. They serve on our board. But like I said, we have 352 municipalities included in our region. And that's just a lot of people to stay in touch with in person on a regular basis. So the solution there, how we aim to support our municipalities is through planning services, resources, and educational opportunities that municipal offices, their volunteers, and interested citizens might find useful to tackle challenges today or retain the region's competitive advantage for tomorrow. So today, I'm just going to focus on the tools section of this. In the past, and still on occasion today, DVRPC has produced a series of brochures for local governments. So some of you might have received them by mail in your offices. And these brochures are for the purpose of educating on emerging topics in the planning field and to assist on implementing the region's long-range plan. So municipal implementation tools, brochures, as they're called, are pretty much these how-to guides on a variety of planning topics for municipal governments, which have the primary authority, as I mentioned, to implement land use policies. Each municipal implementation tool covers a different topic and provides an overview of the tool, the benefits, and the best practices. And so during the last iteration of the long-range plan, to bring these and other resources together in one platform online that's accessible to everyone in municipalities and otherwise, DVRPC has developed an online municipal implementation toolbox to house information on tools that can help municipalities to implement the Connections 2045 long-range plan. So at this point, I'm going to go into that online toolbox and just give you a quick tutorial and tour of what it looks like, and hope that you can check it out on your own, excuse me, after this conference. The website is down here at the bottom of this slide, dvrbc.org/connections2045/MIT for Municipal Implementation Toolbox. And I'll show you some other ways that you can access this online through our main, website. So this is the landing page. As you can see, it's the same website that I mentioned before, right up here. It just kind of gives an overview of what the toolbox is and what its purpose is. And there are a couple of different ways for you to access tools. The main landing page has this word bubble, and the idea of this toolbox is for a municipality to come with an issue in mind. And so maybe you don't know exactly what tool you're looking for, but you know what your issue or problem is that you need to address. So in thinking about all the disruptors that are happening in our personal and professional lives right now, I'm thinking about COVID-19, and I'm thinking about the Black Lives Matter movement, and what I can do as a municipality to support the people in my area, and use tools to do that. So I'm going to go into this word bubble, and you can click on any number of these kind of keywords, and different issue statements will come up. So housing, for example, might have something to do with the recent Black Lives Matter movement, and we're thinking about gentrification impacting long-term residents. So we have these keywords and these issue statements, and under each issue statement is an individual tool. So for that gentrification issue, maybe inclusionary zoning, maybe universal internet access, or right now maybe you want to look into engaging underserved communities. And you can click on that tool, and each tool has its own page, and it has a couple of different elements. It has the tool title at the top. It has some kind of image here, and a lot of them are linked to a different resource. So in this case, this is DVRPC's map for indicators of potential disadvantage. And I'll just click quickly on this resource. It'll take you to a landing page for that, where you can view an actual map and see different resources for that. It'll also have a blurb on what the tool is and why it's important. And then most useful to the municipalities are resources, case studies, and then model or sample ordinances. So we have the resources. Some of them, if you see a hashtag and number, that links to an actual municipal implementation tool brochure that we've created in the past at DVRPC. So we're taking in some of that original material and putting it here to access online. And then there are resources from DVRPC and other different other organizations that have talked on whatever topic you're looking at. You can see who's used this tool, and we've tried our best for most of the tools here to use case studies that are within the region. In this case, there are 2 case studies from the state of Oregon. And then finally, model or sample ordinances. Again, if there's an example that we know of within the region, we list it here. In this case, there's one in Newark, New Jersey. And then finally, at the bottom of the tool page, there's See Also. So there are all kinds of related tools. So this one might be interesting to you, or not quite it, or you want to use it in combination with another tool. So you can see some related tools at the bottom. In this case, community benefits agreements or community engagement. So I'll go back to that home page and scroll down. And at the bottom of the page, there are a couple of different icons to take you to a few different places. As I mentioned, there were 2 different ways to view the content of the tools on this page. The first is through that word bubble or word cloud identifying issues, but you can also go to the first icon, Full Toolkit, and see a list of our planning principles for the long-range plan and a short description of each one of the goals within those principles. So these are goals directly taken out of the long-range plan. And so thinking about COVID-19 and Black Lives Matter movement, I'll scroll down to expand the economy and advance equity and foster diversity, and see all the goals included within those principles in our long-range plan, and expands those goals to see all of the related tools that are within them in both categories. Going back to those other icons on the homepage, we also link to funding opportunities and our municipal outreach page, both on the DVRPC website. So these have been resources that have been available on DVRPC's website for many years, and they're continually updated. So we just link directly to them. Same with municipal outreach program. This is something that we collect tools, technical assistance, and other opportunities to connect. So I'll encourage you to go there. Oops, let's get back to my original page. There we go. And then finally, we can link directly to the Connections 2045 plan page. And I'll just go down to the end of the full toolkit. And at the end of that page, you'll see a link to an actual physical brochure. So if this is something, we did mail these physical brochures out to all of our municipalities back maybe 6 months ago when we first released this plan. But if this is something that you want more copies of, you could always click on this and request copies of that. So let me just get back to my presentation. So there are resources, case studies, and model and sample ordinances for more than 80 tools that municipalities can use to implement the 5 core principles of the long-range plan in their own jurisdictions. So this is a listing of tools here, and as I said, you can go to that full toolkit webpage and see the expanded list of all of these. And this is something that we plan to update on an ongoing and rolling basis It's branded to the Connections 2045 plan right now, but we're working on the Connections 2050 plan at the moment. So it'll continue to be adjusted based on whether principles or goals are changed. So you can find the toolbox online by navigating from the home page at DVRPC. So just by going to dvrpc.org, you'll notice a left-hand toolbar, and you can expand it to go to the long-range plan page. And on that long-range plan page, there is an icon for the municipal implementation toolbox. And of course, you can visit it directly by going to the website at the bottom of the screen. So that's it for my presentation. Thank you so much for having me. And I see Cecile has jumped back on, and I'll take any questions that you have.
Well, right now I have one question for you. It says, this is a great presentation. Thank you. Can private organizations, namely non-municipalities, have access or use of this toolkit?
Absolutely. It's available online to anybody who's interested. All you need to do is go to the website. A lot of the tools talk about some of the tools at the disposal to municipalities through their home rule authority, but the information is applicable to a lot of local organizations and can be useful to them as well.
Yes, it really is interesting information. Do we have any other questions? Okay, that person says, thank you. Matt says, thank you. Great tool. We look forward to using it for our strategic planning. So I want to thank another poll. Let me put this up. Whoop, we got the old poll. So I'm going to ask our producer. Oh, nope, nothing else. Okay, Allie, if you could give me a hand here with the poll. We still have the old poll up. Okay, here we go. Now, or monthly, did you work from home? Twice a week, once a week, twice a month, once a month? And let me know if that little Jeopardy song is going off in your head right now. Okay, number of people voting still. And we'll end the polling now. Okay, so over 51% had never telecommuted before. So I think that's an interesting result. And twice a week, it was only 3%. So one person. Hopefully that will change. Okay, hi, it is now my pleasure to introduce Lindsay Herzog. She's up on your board here. Lindsay is the account executive for ChargePoint, and she will be talking about electric vehicle charging stations. She has worked in the sustainability and clean technology industry for the past 12 years, and with ChargePoint since 2017. Prior to joining ChargePoint, Lindsay was a sales director for Tesla and aided in the launch of Tesla's energy design, where she provided and distributed energy solution for homeowners. Lindsay received her BA in Communication and International Relations from North Carolina State University. She currently lives in Pottstown with her boyfriend, 2 dogs, and 2 cats. That must be interesting sometimes.
It
okay.
is. Yes.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you very much. And I thank you all for being here today. It's a pleasure to present to you this morning via this webinar. And, you know, as was mentioned, I am the territory manager for ChargePoint for the Mid-Atlantic. So I oversee the sales and installation of electric vehicle charging stations in Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland. So I will be going into our slide deck here shortly. So the ChargePoint, our goal is to electrify vehicles and create a new fueling network, and making it simple for folks like yourself to take that transition, whether it be your own personal vehicle, whether it be a fleet vehicle for the municipality or for your police department, whether it be a bus for SEPTA, or with Amazon and delivering goods around the country for folks that need those products. So our goal is to create a new fueling network throughout the world. A little bit of background about ChargePoint. We've been in business since 2017. We were the first networked charging station company. So we actually started designing and implementing the software technology to manage the charging stations. And then we found that a lot of the hardware technology out there was not to our standards, where we wanted to have our name associated with that. So we began manufacturing and engineering our own hardware to create a complete solution for site hosts as well as for drivers, and ultimately creating the world's largest electric vehicle charging infrastructure network in the world. We have about 600 employees, and a third of them are engineering staff working diligently and very hard on creating a better solution for our customers so that we can continue to be the marketplace leader for electrification of vehicles. We have about 70% market share, not only from the number of stations deployed, but also for the number of electric vehicle drivers that utilize our network. And at the end of the day, it's because we want to make this simple, and we put the driver experience first, because that's really what matters the most. You know, you could be a municipality. I work with a lot of municipalities in Pennsylvania and implementing electric vehicle charging stations. And if you have a charging station and an asset, it's great to have, but you want to make sure that it's utilized. Otherwise, it's just a stranded asset. So having the ability to work with ChargePoint and our network will give you an advantage to manage your stations, to really control what's happening with them on a day-to-day basis, and ultimately creating a better driver experience for people to utilize the stations. So a few of the key advantages with ChargePoint is, as I mentioned already, is our complete solution. So we have our hardware, our software, our in-house support team, as well as our mobile application. So everything is designed, engineered, manufactured, and managed by ChargePoint. Nothing is outsourced to a third party. So if there's any fingers to point, it's going to be pointed at ChargePoint. Which, no pun intended, ChargePoint. But we have our Unrivaled network. We are the largest network in the world, and we're continuing to grow by the day. And really, it comes down to just having the experience and the support and the service that people come to rely on, and that really has set us apart from the other vendors and suppliers in the marketplace. And then lastly, and really most importantly, we're constantly upgrading our technology and our software and just making what's already great even greater. Some of the features that we can provide in our software are, what I really like are the different analytics and reports that a site host can supply and pull for themselves. So when you install a charging station with ChargePoint, you get to have access to the dashboard and all of the analytics that come with in owning a charging station. So you can see the usage, you can be able to see what drivers are charging and at what time and for how long. And if you decided that you wanted to charge drivers to use the charging stations, how much revenue has been generated. And with that, how much energy consumption has been pulled from the grid. So you can really begin to manage that and to control what's happening with your station on a daily basis. Some of the cool features from a driver perspective is waitlist. So if there's a bay of charging stations, but they're all in use, the person that needs to drive or charge their vehicle, that driver can go onto the waitlist queue, and then they can be alerted once the first available port becomes open. That driver that is first in line in that queue will be alerted via the ChargePoint mobile application. They'll get a push notification on their phone saying, this charging station or this port is available. Would you like to start that charging session and move your vehicle there? And that driver can say, yes, I want to use that charging port, or no, I'm in a meeting, or I'm at lunch, or I can't get to that right now. Let me snooze and send the next person in line to that charging port, and I'll become the second person in the queue because I'm in a meeting, or whatever the case may be. And that person that is queued up for that charging port, they're the only ones that can use that charging port if they decide they want to opt into that. So, you know, a random driver that sees that there's an available charging station, they can't just go and swoop in and take that person's port if they're in the process of walking down the stairs and out to their vehicle. So it's really comprehensive and very advanced technology. And there's, again, a lot of really cool features, waitlist being one of them. The different access controls. So depending on if you have a mixed use site where it may be for you know, multifamily and retail, and you want to allow some of the retail folks to use the charging station during working hours from 9 to 5, and then it opens up to the multifamily or the apartment complex residents, you can set the different times for when different people can use the charging stations and provide those access controls, and if they needed to opt into the program. So we can make it as easy as somebody just pulling up and starting a charging session with their mobile application, or they would need to receive authorization from the site host to use that station. So we can work with you during the activation process to configure your network and your charging stations to whatever your goals are. And we can change them daily, we can change them monthly, weekly, however you feel necessary to manage your charging stations appropriately. We also have fleet services as well. So we're finding that more and more fleets are becoming electrified. For example, down in Delaware, I'm working with those folks on a project now, and their goal is to have 25% of the state's fleet electrified by 2025. And we're seeing that across the nation. So we have various applications and you know, different software and hardware technology dedicated strictly to fleet services. So if that's something that's interesting to you, happy to continue that conversation at a later date. In addition to our fantastic software and hardware capabilities, we also provide help with planning and the installation and ongoing support of your network and your charging stations. Because for a lot of people, this is your first rodeo when it comes to electrification and an EV charging infrastructure. So we understand that you're probably spinning your head thinking, where do I start? What do I do? You know, how do we make this happen? So that's where I come in, and my job is to help simplify this for you and make this transition and project as seamless as possible. So my initial goal would be to either come on site or do a webinar screen sharing, and you know, I learn about the project you have in mind, the different sites that you would consider charging, you know, what makes the most sense, you know, and how we can really implement and increase your utilization, because you want to have a charging station that's visible, it's easily accessible, it's not, you know, behind a building and hard to get to, and will cost you, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars to run electrical wiring and conduit to get to that site. So I want to make sure that the project, it works within your budget, and it is visible for utilization for the public, or you know, your fleet, whoever is going to be using these stations, for them to be able to find those as well. So we'll help you with your site planning and in making sure that the appropriate folks are involved so that we can get the stations operational. And then once the stations are in place, you have ongoing support. So from a site host, you can call from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern time. And for our drivers, it's a 24/7 driver support. So if there's a brand new driver who just got their Chevy Bolt or their Leaf or their Tesla, and they want to charge on your charging station, but they don't know how, they can simply call our 1-800 number that's on the front of our charging station, and a member of our support team will be able to assist them within a matter of moments. So they're not going to be waiting on a phone for 15 minutes for somebody to maybe pick up. We've got 70 people working around the clock in our support team in Arizona to answer any driver questions that arise. And again, that's one of the reasons why ChargePoint is a market leader, is because we do stand by our products and we stand by our drivers. Some of the hardware that we utilize is listed here on this screen. So starting from the very left, I'll work my way over to the right. This is our CPH home unit. So this is meant specifically for individual residents to park in their garage, and this is their own personal charging station. So if you were interested in having something at your home, you could simply purchase this unit on Amazon.com. Or if you had any questions, I can assist you with that as well. But this is strictly for a residential unit. All of these stations here for our CPF 25 and our CT 4000, these are the most common level 2 charging stations. And for those of you that are not familiar with the different levels of charging stations, you've got level 1, which is a standard 110 NEMA outlet that you can plug into your wall and you can charge your vehicle from there. But you're going to get very little charge. It's called a trickle charge. You'll get maybe 3 or 4 miles of range per hour. So it would take you days to charge an all-electric vehicle. So that's why people go towards a level 2 charging station, which will provide anywhere between 22 to 30 miles of range per hour, depending on the vehicle. So if you drive a Tesla, you'll be able to take that entire amount of power that's going to be emitted from the charging station. Whereas if you drive a plug-in hybrid like myself, my car will dictate how much power I can receive. So the car and the charging station will speak to each other, and they'll ultimately determine the amount of power rating that can go into the vehicle. And once the vehicle is fully charged, it will stop charging. There will be no more electricity being inputted into the vehicle, even if the port is still engaged into the car. So these are, again, level 2 charging stations. The CPF is specifically meant for multifamily, so condo association owners, multifamily units, as well as for fleet. So it's more for a dedicated usage. You'd have one account dedicated to that specific station. So it's meant really for fleet and for multifamily. Our CT 4000 series, I call this the workhorse of the charging world. And this is the most commonly installed charging station that we have. And this is really great for mixed use. So if you have multiple drivers that will be needing to charge on this charging station, I would recommend going with our CT 4000 series. Any vehicle that has a charging capability can connect into this charging station. And then, moving over, we have a little bit more of a higher powered charging stations, but these are not as commonly used as the CT 4000, just given, from a pricing standpoint as well. And then moving over to our level 3 commercial units, these are the high powered DC fast chargers. They can be, they'll give you 62.5 kilowatt outputted power rating, and they have the ability to provide up to 250 miles of range per hour. But the only caveat is that the vehicles need to be able to accept DC fast charge in order to be able to charge on these on these charging stations. But as more and more automotive manufacturers are committing to providing electric vehicles, we're going to continue to see more DC fast chargers deployed, out on the road for public usage, within the gas stations, rest stops, even at fueling depots for fleet services as well. As I mentioned previously, ChargePoint, we design and engineer everything, even our mobile applications. So we were actually Apple's app of the day a few months back. We have a 4.6 star rating, which is a very, very high rating. And we're constantly adding new drivers to our network. We have, I believe it's like every 3 or 6 seconds, a new charge is being plugged in on the ChargePoint network. So we're constantly having new drivers connect to our charging stations. And some of the cool features that we have with our app, it's really easy to use. I personally am not a big app person, but I do find that this app is very easy to use, and it's very straightforward. So you can have navigation. It'll give you real-time information with either Google Maps, Apple Maps, or Waze. And you can see from on the left-hand side of the screen here that some of the dots are blue and some are green. So if they're green, that means that they're available to use. And if they're blue, it means that they're currently in use and you may need to engage the wait list feature that was previously mentioned. It'll provide photos of the stations as well, so you know exactly what you're looking for. And with the navigation feature, it will actually send you directly to the charging station. So you're not wandering around a parking garage with 10 levels trying to figure out what level this charging station is on, because that could be a bit time consuming. There's driver tips as well. So if you find that somebody has been parking in the parking spot for too long and they haven't moved their vehicle and they're done charging, a driver can put down a driver tip, and the site host will then be alerted that, hey, there's a driver tip that's just been submitted. We should check that out and see what we can do to improve their driver experience. You've got the tap to charge as well. There's no credit card readers on our charging stations. Everything will either be done via the mobile application or an RFID card, or calling the 1-800 number on the front of the station. And all of our stations are connected via cellular signal, so it's a much more secure network. So that way there's no need for Wi-Fi or hardwire capabilities. Everything is done cellularly, just from a much more secured standpoint, especially since we have sensitive driver and site host information. We don't want that getting into the wrong hands. And if you don't have a ChargePoint mobile application on your phone, not a problem. You don't have to be an actual ChargePoint account holder unless it's required by that specific station, but you can simply pay and start a charging session if you have Apple Pay or PayPal, and all of that. Again, those are compatible with credit cards, but there are no physical credit card readers on the front of the stations. And then from the different verticals as well, there's multiple value propositions that we can provide. I mean, just from a workplace perspective, you can increase employee retention, and you can provide a great benefit for employees. And you can even improve their productivity with having different features implemented, so they're not running out every 15 or 30 minutes to see if their car's finished charging. They can simply look on their mobile application or log in to their account, and they can see where exactly they are in their state of charge with their vehicle. From the multifamily, that's one of our largest growing verticals with apartment complexes and condo associations, is you can bring in new tenants, and you can retain tenants as well. So people are going to charge either at work or at home for the most part. And if their workplace does not provide charging, but an apartment complex does, and they're looking to move, they will most likely be choosing the apartment complex that has electric vehicle charging stations, so that they don't have what's called range anxiety and a fear of wondering where they're going to find their next charging station. And then my last slide here, and this is probably the most important, I should say, for those folks here in Pennsylvania, is there is a really fantastic rebate program available that I'm not sure if you're all aware of, but I'll go over anyway. It's through Appendix D. So what happened a few years back is Volkswagen got in trouble for cheating on their diesel emissions tests, and they were fined $2 billion. And Pennsylvania received about $115 million of that money to put towards clean air and electrification and really just improving the overall air quality in our state. So about $7.7 million was dedicated to level 2 EV charging. They're currently about 50% or so the way through the program, but there is still funds available. So it's not like we have to do this today, but the funds are going quickly. But anybody that has a commercial level 2 charging station that is either available for the public or for their own workplace or fleet needs will be able to qualify for this rebate program. It's on a per port basis. So ideally one station will come with 2 charging ports that can charge 2 cars simultaneously. They can receive anywhere between $3,500 up to $4,500 per plug. So $7,000 to $9,000 per charging station, depending on if it's going to be publicly accessible or if it will be simply used for your workplace, privately, or for your fleet privately. I have submitted about 150 applications on behalf of my customers. So I'd be happy to submit applications for the folks that are on the call here today that are interested in moving forward. And the great thing with this program is that you actually apply for the rebate prior to buying any equipment or beginning any project costs. So you will essentially be guaranteed those funds when you're finished your charging station project. But the only caveat is that once you apply and you receive your rebate voucher of whatever it's $9,000 or $7,000, that you have 6 months to complete that project and redeem your rebate voucher to receive those rebate funds. And any site host can hold up to $100,000 worth of rebate vouchers at any given time. But the maximum number of stations that you can have on site would be 10 dual port stations or 20 ports. But that's quite a bit of charging stations. I'd love to sell everybody 10 charging stations, but I don't think that's necessary for most applications. But, we can start off with, a couple stations. And, my goal really, going back to the planning and the site preparation portion of the project is to help you future-proof your investment. You want to be able to build for today, but you want to plan for the future, because when charging infrastructure is implemented, whether it be at a workplace or at a retail location, and people around the area see that there's available charging infrastructure, they're about 6 times more likely to purchase an electric vehicle, because they don't have that fear of that range anxiety that's been alleviated, because they know they can charge, they know it's readily available. And that Chevy Bolt or the Nissan Leaf or the Tesla or whatever new car is coming out on the road, they've had their eye on it, they're going to make that transition over to electrification. So that's all that I had for everyone today. And I'll open everything up now for questions.
Thank you, Lindsay. That was really interesting. We have a number of questions for you, and some you may have already answered, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Sure.
Can we expect more charging stations in the near future?
From ChargePoint as an option? Was that the question?
I think the question more is, will we see more of them available?
You should, yeah. I mean, that's my job. That's my goal, is to have more out there on the road for people to utilize. In regards to the portfolio of stations that ChargePoint has, what we have now, what I shared is what we're utilizing. We don't try to recreate the wheel every time. Our focus is to really advance the software and to give you, greater power ratings. But, the vehicles can only take so much power at this time. So until the vehicles catch up, we're kind of at a standstill in regards to the power output. But we're constantly upgrading our software technology, giving better features and better experiences. But in regards to our portfolio and of solutions, what I shared is what we have in the pipeline for the foreseeable future.
Is there a standard fee for charging stations?
That's up to the site host. So if a site host wants to provide charging as a free amenity, they can by all means do so. If they want to charge people to charge, which I highly encourage my site hosts to do that, because you're not giving away free gasoline cards, so you shouldn't be giving away free electricity. So at the very least, I would advise all of my customers to implement what's called flex billing. It's one of the features in our network. And with the flex billing, you can charge drivers either by the cost of the kilowatt hour, by time, by the day. You could charge them a monthly fee and they can have unlimited charging. So you as a site host will determine how you want to set that up. And our activation and flex billing team, along with myself, will provide best practices, because you don't want to give away free electricity and then people think it's their own personal parking space, but you also don't want to price yourself out of the market where people are like, oh, well, 5 miles down the road, I can charge there for half the cost. So we'll make sure that we give best practices and where you can increase your utilization so you're not pricing yourself out. Okay.
What is the average charge time?
That varies by vehicle, but most folks, they're topping off. It's similar to your cell phone. I have my cell phone here. I'm sure we all have our cell phones next to us, and we're constantly plugging in and charging. So, most charge times are on average about 2 to 3 hours. But if you're driving an all-electric vehicle and you're at 0% battery and you need to get to 100%, It could take, 4 to 6 hours depending on the vehicle and the battery size, but most people are just topping off for, an hour or two.
Okay. Are there portable charging units available in case of an emergency? I guess that would go to the fear of running out of power.
True. Yeah. So the good thing with vehicles is, just like with gas cars, they give you an alert, but with battery electric vehicles, I mean, you're getting many alerts, so you know that you're running out of battery. At the current time, there are no portable charging stations that are able to be transported and then, fueled up. So drivers would right now at this point need to be towed to a local place to charge their vehicle would be the best solution.
Okay. Entering an unfamiliar area, where would the first place I would look for a station? Police building, other municipal building? But you said you have an app that actually gives you that information, correct?
Correct. Yep. So you would just go onto the ChargePoint app, or even on our website, you can locate our charging stations there, and you'd be able to type in your address or the address where you're going. So you want to go out to dinner in Philadelphia and you want to type in the local restaurant. You can look for charging stations within that general vicinity. And you can then, when you're 15 or 20 minutes out, you can reserve that charging station for when you pull up, you can plug right in.
Okay. And given what happened around here last week, I understand this question. If there's a power outage, can any charging unit still be used?
As if they have a battery backup solution implemented within the site, then yes. Otherwise, no. They would not work. They are grid connected. So unless there's a backup source of some sort, the stations will be down as well with the grid. I feel your pain.
And
yes, it's not fun.
yeah. Is there funding available for municipalities to set up charging stations?
Absolutely. So with the rebate available through the state of Pennsylvania that you can utilize with municipalities, I'd say that's probably one of the top verticals that has taken advantage of the incentive is with municipalities. So you would, if you opened it up to the public, you could receive, upwards of $9,000 per charging station. And, the programs that I like to work with, we would also utilize Sourcewell, which was formerly NJPA, and it allows the members in that cooperative, which are nonprofit organizations, municipalities and government agencies and universities, to receive pre-bid locked-in pricing that would help to, bring the cost down. So you're essentially covering about 90% of your costs on these hardware and software by going through the rebate program and Sourcewell. So, and I'll walk you through all of those steps. I like to essentially hold my customers' hands through this, as most of this is their first time. So we'll make it very simple and pretty easy to do.
Okay. I'm going to change the wording a little bit because I think I understand what this question is asking. What is the average cost if the charge host did choose to charge? So we can charge a number of different ways.
Yeah. So if they choose, generally it's about if you're charging by the hour, about $1 an hour, $1.50 an hour on the higher end. Then if you wanted to charge for the cost of electricity, we would recommend doing whatever, PICO or MedEd or PP&L are charging plus, 15 or 20%. So that way, you're covering your costs, and then, you're making a little bit on top, but you're not running to the bank. And, these are not, you're not going to be making thousands and thousands of dollars on revenue. You'll be covering your costs and then a little bit on the top. But again, you're doing something that is a benefit for the neighborhood and for the community. You're putting out, a green and sustainable image, and you're also, going with the market and electrifying, electric cars are coming. They're not going anywhere. There's more and more on the road daily. So, you're really becoming a forefront of this new technology and embracing what's to come.
I have another question here. In southeastern Pennsylvania, comparatively speaking, are you seeing more new charging station installations taking place at traditional gas stations or at businesses for their employees' private use or at multifamily apartments or other residents?
Great question. So mainly workplace. So that's the bread and butter of our company, was within a workplace charging. Multifamily and multi-dwelling unit, that vertical is it's just growing. It's one of our fastest growing verticals, along with fleet. From the gas station perspective, it's a little bit of a slower uptick. We are in communication with some larger gas station retailers like Wawa and Sheetz. but they are a little bit slow to adopt charging stations. Just from their perspective, they need to see certain numbers, and in Pennsylvania, the numbers don't always look favorable to them as they do out maybe in California or Arizona. But again, as more vehicles are on the road, you'll continue to see more and more gas stations adopt electric vehicles or charging stations. So I would say within the next 3 to 5 years, there'll be a lot more out on the road.
Okay, I'm going to combine these two questions. What is the average lifespan of a charging station, and what are the maintenance requirements?
Great question. So the average lifespan is 10 years. Our very first charging station was installed back in 2000 and I believe 2007 or 2008, and it's still operational to this day. So there's not a lot of moving parts. You know, it's like pulling a TV out of a box. You know, if you're expected to work, it's, you know, and if it doesn't, it's generally an issue that came off of the production line. You know, in the 3 years that I've been at ChargePoint, I've only had 2 or 3 instances where the charging stations were defective when they came out of the box, and immediately within 24 hours, we responded and we took care of their needs and had an expedited shipment sent out on site. From a maintenance perspective, there is an opt-in program that we have called our Assure Warranty, which gives customers proactive monitoring, on-site parts and labor, and a 98% uptime guarantee with a 24-hour response time. So if there's ever an issue, we would take care of that for you. But if you choose not to have Assure, you know, it's not something that you should be too terribly concerned with. It's more so just peace of mind, but there's not a great deal of maintenance on these stations. You know, we do very rugged testing. We actually have a former UL testing lab that we put our stations through a very rigorous testing protocol to make sure that they are built to last and they're going to work. And, you know, with our support team, if a station's not working, we're going to make sure that we get that back up and operational for you, because people are going to come to rely on that charging station to work. And the last thing you need to deal with is an angry driver. So we want to make sure that we take care of that for you. And, you know, again, that's one of the reasons why ChargePoint is the market leader in this space.
And I just have one last question. Are school districts, for putting in charging stations, are they considered government-owned property?
I don't, that's a great question. I'm not 100% sure. We'd have to confirm that with the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. I'm assuming they're requesting that for the rebate. So I'd have to confirm. But I would think so, because they're generally either, you know, run within the municipality by the township or by the state. So I would think yes, but I would need to confirm.
Okay. Okay, and any other questions anybody would have for Lindsay, we'll certainly have this up later on our website, and you'll be able to access her contact information. So thank you very much, Lindsay.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Yes, very much so, and very interesting. Okay, now we're going to run another poll, and I'm going to ask Allie if you would put that. Okay, there we go. All right, so how likely are you, after the restrictions are over, to continue to work from home? Again, the Jeopardy theme, we couldn't afford it, so just do it in your head because you all know it. And the votes are coming in fast and furious. Okay, looks like we have them. So, very likely. This does my TMA heart proud to know that you're going to be continuing to telecommute. And also likely. One person said never again. I would really like to talk to them and find out why. I have some ideas in my head, but I'm not going to say anything. And unlikely is might be distance. I don't know. But it's great to see that most of you are either very likely or likely. Okay, now it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker today, Ken McLean. Ken is the district director for PennDOT District 6. He is a civil engineer and has worked for PennDOT in a number of positions over his 13 years. He was appointed district director in 2015. He manages a staff of 900 who are responsible for design, construction, maintenance, and operations of the state highway system. Ken proudly served for 20 years in the Pennsylvania Army National Guard as a combat engineer. He is a graduate of Bucknell University. Ken?
Thank you, Cecile. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much to the Delaware County TMA for affording me the opportunity to talk a little bit about what PennDOT has going on in general in District 6, as well as particular to the Delaware County itself. A special thank you to the fellow speakers, Jacqueline and Lindsay. Thank you very much for those insightful discussions that we just had. Lindsay, I think I'm going to get a hold of you. I'm going to talk about a project where we're putting in some electric vehicle charging stations. So you brought up a lot of good points in your presentation. Just want to give a shout out to DVRPC, Jacqueline, and I saw that Elizabeth Shoemaker is on the call as well. You know, they are a very integral part in being able to plan and implement a lot of the construction and design projects that we have going on in District 6. So thank you very much to the DVRPC for their continued cooperation. We are very, very fortunate to have a planning commission and MPO that is as advanced and sophisticated as they are, as you saw by Jacqueline's presentation with the municipality toolbox. So thank you very much. All right, so with that being said, we'll kick off, and I'll give you, I do only have 750 slides to go over today, so if everybody's good for the next day or so, we should be able to get through this. Next slide, please. All right, so I just wanted to introduce roughly, since they all couldn't be here with me, but the main deputies that I have reporting to me as an executive staff in District 6. So many of you know Chuck Davies, he's our ADE for design. Harold Windish, last time I gave this presentation, he was the acting ADE for construction, but he's been promoted into that position full time. John Krafchak is our ADE for maintenance. Lou Belmont is our ADE for operations, which is everything traffic and traffic permitting. Brad Rudolph is our communications director, and then Gene Blom covers our legislative affairs. Next. All right, so a little bit about PennDOT. As you can see in the statewide graphic that's in the upper right-hand side of the slide, you'll see that there are 11 PennDOT districts across the Commonwealth. There is no District 7, so you know it goes up to 12, but there is no District 7. So they start clockwise as you start going around the Commonwealth. So District 1 is Erie with its headquarters in Oil City. District 2 compromises the Clearfield area, and that's a pretty large district for us. District 3 is the Williamsport area. District 4 is Scranton Dunmore. District 5 is the Lehigh Valley, Berks County, Pocono region. District 6 is southeastern Pennsylvania. That's the district that I'm in charge of. District 8 is the Harrisburg region, also another large district. District 9, as you start going out toward, I believe the 9 headquarters is in Hollidaysburg. District 10 is Indiana, PA. District 11 is one of the smaller districts, being just 3 counties, but it does constitute the city of Pittsburgh. And then District 12 is an extension of West Virginia. So that is, there's a lot of oil and gas play that's going on down in that area. So as you can see, there's another little graphic that shows exactly what is District 6. So District 6 is the 5-county region in southeastern Pennsylvania. So it compromises roughly 6% of the landmass of Pennsylvania, but it does have 33% of the population of Pennsylvania. It roughly has around 28% of the vehicle miles traveled in the state of Pennsylvania. Even though it's a very small area, you know, it's very congested. It's very, we have 50% of the traffic signals, 50% of the ITS devices, you know, over 2,700 bridges, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot going on in the southeastern part of Pennsylvania. I'm not going to go through everything. I just, you know, these are some slides that I pretty much pulled together from various presentations, so I won't bore you. But one of the interesting things to note is that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has more state-owned highways and bridges than New York, New Jersey, and all of the New England states combined. So that's staggering. You know, some of those other states have a higher emphasis on their county governments or the local municipalities that are actually the owners of those infrastructure assets. So in Pennsylvania, the vast majority of the infrastructure is owned and maintained by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So next slide. All right, this little infographic was something that we put together just to show you a highlight of District 6 and our operations. So the takeaway, you know, I'm kind of in the middle as far as the administrative cell. You can see that it's a 5-county region, 2,700 bridges. We have 900 employees. So that's roughly a 1/3, 2/3 split between blue collar, white collar employees. So 1/3 being like 30 to 35% being white collar. They're bridge engineers, traffic engineers, real estate appraisers, planners, fiscal people, HR people. Then you shift over to the blue collar maintenance forces, which are out in each county, and that's roughly 2/3 of our workforce. You can see we're responsible for 3,500 miles of roadway, and that's linear miles, not lane miles. The outer graphics show the 4 major operating areas that constitute District 6. So you'll see in the upper left, we're patterned similar to a lot of manufacturing or private industry. So we have a design, build, maintain, and operate structure to the way that we're organized. So Chuck Davies is the upper left-hand side, that's design. Lower left-hand side is maintenance, that's John Kravchik. You can see some factoids about the area of maintenance. Traffic operations, like I said, that's everything related to traffic and traffic permitting. And then the upper right-hand side, that would be Harold Windish with construction. So next slide. This is a snapshot just to show you the order of magnitude for what our design program looks like compared to the rest of the state. So before, you can see along the bottom of that bar chart, or the 11 PennDOT districts, once again, no District 7. But you'll see District 6 has quite the design program that's going on an annual basis. So this is a 5-year running average, and it was just a snapshot between 2012 and 2016. So you can see that our design program, so the amount of work that we're actually in design, getting ready to push out to construction, it's more than the next 2 districts combined. So that's typically District 11, which is the Pittsburgh area. And then in any one year, it could either be Districts 4, 5, or 8, or typically the next ones in line. 8 being the Harrisburg region, 5 being the Lehigh Valley, 4 being Scranton-Dunmore area, or Scranton-Wilkes-Barre. So the other thing that you take away from this slide is the fact that you can add up the 5 most rural districts in the Commonwealth, and they just exceed what our program is on an annual basis. That'll give you an order of magnitude of where the money is spent kind of in Pennsylvania. Next slide, please. All right, so you're looking at this chart. Once again, it just shows a little bit of where we're spending our money. So the top, you know, out of the 4-year tip cycle, out of the 2017 tip, which is a 4-year period of time, you can see how we're splitting up our money into the various buckets and different project types. So obviously, bridge preservation and replacement being number 1 for us, then pavement reconstruction, widening, and then you work your way down the list. The bottom, $68 million in enhancement programs. What are enhancements? They're quality of life type projects, so they're streetscape projects. We put in a $10 million pedestrian bridge right next to the Valley Forge Historic Park. So these are projects that both DVRPC and PennDOT take very much pride in. We have, I believe it's over 800 miles of trails that exist in the southeastern part of Pennsylvania. And I believe they call that the Circuit Trail Network. Each one of the counties is working very, very hard at expanding that trail network annually. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're in upwards of over 1,000 miles of trails at this point. But over 750 was the number that comes to mind the last time I checked. Decade of investment. That was in 2013 when the state legislature launched what was called Act 89, which was Pennsylvania's transportation system funding program. And basically, you'll look and see where we stand to date with our decade of investment. So Act 89 gave us additional transportation revenues. In District 6, we have over $3 billion that have been put out to construction so far. We have around another $4 billion that are somewhere, they're programmed, they're somewhere in the design process. And then there's about $1 billion of those projects that haven't yet begun but we're starting to chip away at them. I'm not so sure that all of those projects will get done, just because your various priorities tend to change over time. And a lot of that $1 billion were different studies, because we didn't have money to actually do engineering and construction. So we started studies for various roadways. If you look at the two graphs on the right-hand side, you'll see that, you know, starting in 2009, there was a major bridge collapse that happened out in Minnesota. So at that point in time, Pennsylvania and a lot of the state DOTs started to shift their money away from the roadways and into the bridge network. So you'll see that when that shift of money started to happen, our pavement conditions are kind of, they're either flatlined or getting worse. So you'll see the blue line is, you know, they're kind of like rural roads. The black line is very rural roads. So you can see in those two demographics, and we don't have as many rural roads as a lot of my other counterparts across the state, but the ride quality of those roads is getting worse. We are putting a lot of money into the interstate system and into the national highway system, which would be, they'd be your 202s, your 309s, your 422s of the world, the ones that aren't interstates, but they're other limited access expressways. Route 1, we're putting a lot of money into those as well. So the ride quality is actually getting better on the national highway system. But then you'll see the other graph, and a downward trend is good, because that's the number of poor condition bridges. So you can see as the money got shifted, the bridge conditions got a lot better, but the highway conditions got a lot worse. So next slide. Next slide. Thank you. So this pie chart pretty much just shows we roughly get around $2.6 billion for a 4-year transportation improvement program cycle. So a lot of people ask me, well, how do you spend your money? So it's not surprising that construction is the most expensive portion of that program. So if you look at the pie chart, we spend 75% of our money in construction, and then the other 25% constitutes all of the pre-construction activities. So that could be preliminary engineering, final design, they're the engineering phases. Right-of-way acquisition, around 5% of our money is spent purchasing property necessary for those transportation improvements. And then utilities, that's utility relocations. So almost every single project that we put out has either underground or aerial utilities that are associated with it, and you can't do construction without moving those utilities first. Next slide, please. Okay, so our construction program. I talked a little bit about design and where we stack up for design. So if we have the largest design program in the state, it's very intuitive that we would also have the largest construction program in the state, because everything in design eventually moves toward construction. Then you also looked at the fact that 75% of our money in a 4-year cycle is actually spent on construction. So the big green piece of pie in this pie chart constitutes District 6. So we're roughly around 33% of the statewide construction program. And then the rest of the pie chart just constitutes the other districts across the Commonwealth. Next slide, please. Okay, so as we move, as technology changes, I did speak about this. Many of you have heard me speak about these concepts before, but we're embracing a technology called active traffic management. And there is a project that's happening right on 476, which is the Blue Route in Delaware County. So it's a various toolbox of different technology solutions that could be used to help actively manage traffic. Hence the active traffic management strategies name to it. So the sexiest of all of them is the one in the middle, and you'll see that's called flex lane usage. So if you've been in other urban parts of the country, you'll notice that different DOTs and different tollways actually allow the usage of the shoulders during either peak times or times of incident. And then the usage of that additional auxiliary lane is controlled by some overhead signs. So this is just a typical section view of a 4-lane highway that does allow for the usage of the shoulders during peak times or high times of congestion. On the upper left-hand side, that's variable speed limits and queue detections. We just installed these exact signs on the Schuylkill Expressway on the Montgomery County section of it. So as you go from Route 1 into toward the Blue Route from Philadelphia toward Montgomery County, you'll notice that these signs were installed, and we're troubleshooting them as we speak. So the whole intent of this is to change the speed limits to try to manage and harmonize traffic. So if you're traveling along and it's a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit, and then all of a sudden you come across one of these signs that says 35 miles an hour, you'll know that you're entering into a congested area. So it's encouraging people to slow down so that they're not coming into a traffic queue at a high rate of speed and causing rear-end crashes. You'll see ramp metering. That is a technology that exists along the Blue Route in Delaware County today. That was old technology, though. They're pre-timed for those signals. The new set of ramp metering that we're going to be looking at, the new technology, would actually be looking at the gaps of mainline traffic and being able to intuitively control those signals to be able to allow more vehicles to enter into the main line to get into those gaps. The upper right-hand side, dynamic lane assignment and junction control, just tells, it enables the vehicles or the roadways that have more of the demand at any point in time to actually use those lanes. And then we're partnering with SEPTA to try to incorporate just ITS knowledge to people to allow them to understand when trains are leaving, what the schedule are, and how many parking spots may be available at various parking locations close to interstate highways. Next slide, please. So you ask yourself, why would we be looking at that type of technology? So, when you construct something like that, we can't afford to widen our way out of construction any longer. The cost of highway construction and reconstructing highways and building a lot of real estate is very, very costly. So if we're using the shoulders instead of, conventionally widening to add more permanent lanes, it's a smaller footprint. So it requires less right-of-way. That in turn reduces the environmental impacts. There are wetlands and endangered species and even property owners that live adjacent to the corridor. So it significantly lessens those environmental impacts because it's a smaller footprint. Because you're not dealing with all of those environmental issues, it's a more expedient project delivery system. It's more economical because you're putting less, boots on the ground. You're putting less bricks and mortar on the ground to actually construct these things. And the scope is scaled to fit the traffic demand. So, you'd be allowing, why widen a road permanently and invest all that money when traffic is only a problem for 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours at night? And that's a lot of what we're seeing. So in order to scale it effectively, we'd rather just put a more minimal investment in and allow the usage of the shoulders during certain times of the day. Next slide, please. All right, so you ask, how many different projects or project locations in District 6 are we entertaining these types of projects? So I mentioned before the variable speed limit queue detection that's under construction, going through testing right now. The Schuylkill Expressway from Route 202 to 476, that's currently under design right now as well. We're looking to implement something relatively soon out there. Blue Route from Westchester Pike. So this is the one that I talked about in Delaware County. So it would be from Route 3 Westchester Pike, both directions of 476 south until you get to 95. Then you'd be looking at the southbound direction of 95 only until you get to the 322 exit for the Commodore Barry Bridge. We just awarded a study for 422. So that's from PA Route 29 down south or east toward US 202 where it terminates. And then we are looking at different options for the Route 30 bypass in Chester County. So we've been going through alternatives analysis, and it looks like the hard shoulder running is a very good option there as opposed to doing conventional widening. Next slide, please. All right, so here's the Delaware County project that we talked about. Right now, it's looking like it's pretty attractive to do the widening or the flex lanes in the center on the inside median on 476, and then the outside median on I-95 in the southbound direction. So right now we're planning to put this thing out into construction in the year 2025 at an estimated cost of $54 million. Next, please. Okay, one of the exciting projects that we have that's going on in design right now is our Regional Traffic Management Center. So you'll see a picture on the right-hand side, that big green cubicle shaped thing. That's our district office building. It's actually in the shape of a rhombus, which is an elongated diamond. You'll see on the left-hand side is going to be a new parking garage. On the right-hand side will be our new Regional Traffic Management Center. So right now, our traffic management center is 40% over capacity, and it is located on the 4th floor of our existing building. We have a lot of closed circuit TV cameras, a lot of different variable message signs that we use to manage traffic, and we've outgrown the facility that we're in now. So with the advent of the active traffic management, that's going to put us further behind where we can't actively manage it from our current facility. So we are planning to build a 2-story, 38,000 square foot building right adjacent to our current district office. It will afford the opportunity for co-location of various EMS entities during any kind of regional disaster or traffic incident. So the Pope came to town a couple years ago, back in September 2015. We had the Democratic National Convention. We had the NFL draft in the region. All of these events created a lot of traffic in the southeastern portion of Pennsylvania, and we had to man an active traffic management center. We had FEMA, county emergency operations centers. The National Guard was brought in for the papal visit and for the DNC, as well as the U.S. Secret Service for some of these things. So this is going to be a state-of-the-art facility that's going to help us manage traffic during any kind of event in southeastern Pennsylvania. So, and there is the opportunity there to co-locate with some of our emergency response partners. For the first time in our history at PennDOT, we are going to be taking over the ownership of traffic signals. So we will be actively managing traffic signals on select corridors. And then you'll notice just an overall of the project. It's a 3-phase project, so you can see the timeline below. The first step is to build a parking garage so that we have place on site to park. That's anticipated to be completed February of next year. The building itself for the traffic management center, August 2022. And then the place that we're vacating on the 4th floor of our existing building will be retrofitted back in the normal office space. That'll be done April 2023. And this is very, very important to get this new building structure completed so that we could manage all of the roadside traffic facilities that will be installed with these active traffic management projects that I talked about on the previous slides. Next. All right, that's just a rendering from the parking lot side of what the Regional Traffic Management Center would look like. That actually is a picture of our building on the left. It's kind of a unique shaped building. We're using similar materials to kind of blend the two together, but you can't really replicate what's there now, so we didn't want to try. So it's going to be a rectangular conventional building connected to the other building, which is oddly shaped, but using similar materials to help blend it together. At least that's what the architects tell me. I'm not an architect. Next slide, please. Here are some renderings of what it's going to look like on the inside. So you can see that there is a large 2-story video wall that will be there that we can view all of the interstates and arterials in the district where we have cameras. I believe we are encroaching around 700 closed circuit TV cameras in the district today. And we have operators that are staffed 24/7 that manage the traffic. In this area, because it is so congested, if there was just somebody that ran out of gas and was sitting in one lane, you would have backups into New Jersey. So every minute counts when it comes to emergency response. So we partner with the State Farm Service Patrol to help get out there and assist motorists that are stranded. Monitoring these cameras help us to notice them at the earliest possible point. We dispatch either the state police or the State Farm Service Patrol, and they go out there and help to get traffic back to normal as far as normal goes. The State Farm Service Patrol actually assists anywhere between 14,000 and 16,000 stranded motorists per year. So that is a very good service that is funded on the DVRPC tip each year. So you'll see that the center of this building is operator stations on the floor. They are the people that are actually managing the traffic and viewing the two-story video wall. Along the outside of this facility are various either conference room spaces or war room planning spaces for emergency management. We do on the lower level have an incident command center. It is all glass because they need privacy, but it is glass from floor to ceiling so that they can view and see what's going on actually out on the floor. So this is a very state-of-the-art building, emergency, 24/7, 365. It will have a kitchen, bunk rooms, locker rooms, just in case people get stranded in there for 2, 3, 4 days at a time. All of the mechanicals will be redundant. We do have a hardened exoskeleton because this is a Class 4 emergency response center. It will not be blast proof. We decided that the risk for blasts were pretty small, so we didn't want to incur the extra cost there. But it is a hardened exoskeleton with redundant mechanicals so that this can be a life-sustaining facility for a 3 to 4 day period during an event. Next slide, please. We are investing a lot of money in Delaware County, and I'm not going to read everything that's on here for the sake of time, but I will just go over some of these projects just to let you know what's going on, what's hot and heavy in Delaware County, but it's a significant investment, as you'll see. So we are doing a pavement restoration project of I-95 pretty much from the Delaware state line north up to roughly the Philadelphia International Airport. The blacktop off the top of the road will be milled off. We'll do some joint repairs of the underlying concrete pavement, and it will be a full bituminous overlay of that roadway for that entire stretch that I mentioned before. We'll also be doing a lot of the ramps and bridge joints, guide rail upgrades. So it's a well overdue project. If you've ridden that stretch of road, it is in terrible shape, and we do realize that it needs to be done. So that started earlier this spring, and it'll be continuing to finish in late 2023. It's roughly at a $69 million price tag, so it's a very good project. Next slide, please. All right, the next couple projects I'll talk about is our investment in the 322 corridor in Concord Township and adjacent townships. So the project that's under construction now is 2.5 miles of widening of 322 from Route 1 up to Matson Road over Clayton Park. Widening, it'll be a new modern facility. You can tell there's a ton of congestion in that area based on the development that has occurred over the last 30 years. And it is just a fantastic project. So it started back in March of 2017. It's expected to finish at the end of this calendar year, and that's roughly at a cost of $65 million. Next. All right, the Ardmore Avenue bridges, I just tried to throw in a flavor of different projects that just to show you how we're doing some bridges, some safety projects, some highway projects. So Ardmore Avenue Bridge, that's located right next to Marion Country Club. There is an existing SEPTA train station for their high-speed line there. This is roughly a $10 million project. It's anticipated to finish later this year. We are working with SEPTA to get track outages and PICO to get power outages so that we can set the beams there. But there was a lot of context-sensitive design that was done with this project, a lot of form lining, stonework, a lot of coordination with the Marion Country Club to be able to match some of the stone that they have there, some of the stone that's native to the region in Delaware County. This was a companion project because there was another project down the SEPTA line over College Ave, so College Ave over SEPTA. So that project was completed about 1.5 years ago, and now this is the next bridge that's being done at a cost of $10 million. Next slide, please. All right, so I just wanted to give, in Radnor Township, there are a series of 3 small culverts that are stone arch culverts. As with most roads in Delaware County, they were never built to facilitate the amount of traffic that's there today. I mean, you can see this particular road was built in 1905. And what did it have? A couple horses and buggies back in 1905. Now it has almost 11,000 vehicles a day using it. So just an investment on some smaller bridges. They were structurally deficient. We are going out there doing some major repair work to them, and we've been working very closely with Radnor Township and some adjacent schools to make sure that this project gets done, hopefully in time before school comes back into session. Next, please. Our resurfacing program. So we are doing a lot of resurfacing. So in the year 2019, we did around 44 miles of resurfacing in Delaware County. Over the year 2020 and 2021, that's going to be reduced to around 21 miles. You can see the various roadways in Delaware County that are planned to be resurfaced over the remainder of this year and into next construction season. You'll notice it's about half of what it was in 2019, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But you'll see 21 miles, and there's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, roughly around 11 or 12 different roads that are going to be resurfaced in Delaware County. Next slide, please. All right, this is a very important project on the Blue Route. So it's the McDade Boulevard interchange. So you'll see in the schematic on the right-hand side, the Blue Route is running up and down or north-south on the drawing, and then you'll see the partial cloverleaf interchange that's there. So what's happening on a normal day when traffic starts to get congested and backing up is people take the ramp for McDade Boulevard, so that's on the lower left-hand side. It's a little slip ramp. And then they get onto McDade Boulevard and they weave over across 2 lanes to get into the left-hand turn lane and then make a left to get back on the ramp. And basically what we call that is queue jumping. So those people are saving themselves maybe 5 or 10 minutes of time. They're queue jumping around 50 or 60 vehicles in that line, but it's creating a big safety issue on McDade Boulevard, and it's infuriating the drivers that are sitting in traffic on 476. So we will be removing that slip ramp on the lower portion of that schematic. That'll be removed, and then all movements will be directed to the loop ramp, and then we will be allowing, with the signalization at that intersection, we'll be allowing left turns to come. So that will accommodate the movement of the ramp that's being removed. The other major improvement is the length of the acceleration lane, or deceleration lane rather, the merge lane for the ramp in the upper right-hand portion of the schematic. That's going to be significantly extended. It's going to be, I think, tripled in length. So that'll give a lot more queuing and stacking and enable traffic to merge in better instead of all in one point. Anytime you have multiple ramps at one point in a heavily congested area, it significantly degrades the level of service of the highway. So by extending those and moving them away from each other, that's going to improve operations of the highway. And then, as I mentioned before, this is the same stretch of road that's going to have active traffic management scenarios built into it. So we will be having some sort of flex lane in this section as well. So we envision the flex lane to work very, very well going northbound, because you're going from a 4-lane section of road to a 6-lane section. So the flex lane essentially gives you another lane to be able to transition when the highway opens up just north of Route 3, Westchester Pike. Southbound, you're still constrained by the volumes that 95 will allow. So I don't think it's going to work as well southbound, but northbound, it should pretty much work like a charm on opening day. So this particular interchange project, just the eradication of that ramp and some changed movements and extension of the other ramp, around $15 million, and it will be going out to bid late 2021. Next slide, please. Here's an extension of the 322 corridor that we discussed before. These 2 sections, section 102, 103, they are continuing on from the section 101 project that I talked about earlier. Once again, widening of 322. Had to split these projects out into 2 separate sections just due to the price tag associated with them. They were getting to be roughly $200 million or in excess in cost. So from a fiscal constraint standpoint, it made more sense to break them up with sections of independent utility. One section was taking a lot longer to acquire the necessary property for the project. So we decided to advance section 103 first. So you'll see that's going to be let in 2022 at a price tag of 80 million. And then we'll be coming back to do the middle piece in 2024. And that's estimated to cost $140 million. So that will give us, in essence, roughly a 6-mile stretch of 322 once all 3 of those sections are done. And then I'll talk about another project that's going to replace a bridge for another mile. So it's going to be roughly 7 miles of 322. Next slide, please. 322 over CSX railroad. So you see these bridge structures over the railroad. There are some structural issues. They're still safe to drive on, but you know they're meeting their useful life cycle. You can see by looking at the picture on the right-hand side that there isn't a whole lot of room. It's very, very tight. 2 lanes of traffic. There's pretty much the absence of an inside shoulder, absence of an outside shoulder. So there's going to be some minor widening to make that a little bit more modernized. This will be about another mile of roadway that's going to be done. Another $43 million anticipated to go to construction sometime in 2021. Next slide. All right, so those of you that have ever driven on 322 and tried to merge onto I-95 northbound know that it's kind of like a white knuckle scenario. So there's a significant weave and you're coming into, so you have to weave across lanes, then you're merging in on the left side of I-95 northbound. So, you know, I've made that move a couple times myself. It's very uncomfortable to make. So we do have a project that's in design right now to reconfigure or fix some of that weaving motion. So this is very, very early in its infancy of project development. So we're only starting preliminary engineering. As you can see at the bottom of the slide, this thing isn't expected to go to construction until the late 2020s. And I was intentionally vague on that because you could meet all kind of obstacles ranging from funding to environmental justice. So, you know, at best guess right now, we're looking at the late 2020s, and that's another $100 million project. So you can see just from the various slides that I went through, I mean, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars invested in Delaware County from a PennDOT perspective. Next slide, please. Various projects in design that aren't really imminent to construction. Some of them are just some other types of projects. So here's a bridge replacement on the north side, anticipated to go to construction 2022, another $18 million price tag. It'll be a full bridge replacement of a 482 long, span long bridge. It's a concrete arch, it's in poor condition, and it's on South Creek Road in Chadds Ford Township. So as you can, I guess it's right on the county line because it's mentioning Pennsbury Township, Chester County as well. The picture on the bottom is a very unique situation where there's a SEPTA trolley line that runs along the state right of way. So you have that sharing state road. You have the intersection of another local road, and then you have a CSX freight line that comes in all at one area. So this is a safety project. It's going to be improving a lot of the warning signals. So we're going to have, you know, a lot of different warning signals, flashing lights, gates, the whole 9 yards, just making that a much safer location for people to use right now. And that's coming in at a price tag of around $5.5 million. And that's going to be put out for bid later this year. Next. Just some other various bridge replacement projects. You can see these are Tinicum Township up by the airport. One bridge on 291 over Conrail. It's another $11.5 million, scheduled to go out late 2021. Then you have Route 420 over the Darby Creek. That's another $24 million project in late 2023. So you can see you're starting to add up in your mind over the next 2 to 3 years how many large-scale infrastructure projects are going on in Delaware County. It's quite impressive. Next. All right, so now for the happy part of the discussion. So I talked before, you noticed that our paving number of miles, our paving program basically got cut. So, you know, the way that PennDOT is funded right now is through the motor license fund. So the motor license fund is driver license renewals, it is gas taxes at the pump, and it is car registration renewals. So right now during the COVID-19 state, we're estimating that there's a 40% reduction in statewide vehicle miles traveled. So if you think about that logically, that means that there's a 40% reduction in gas receipts coming at the pump because people are driving less. So that significantly impacts the Pennsylvania Motor License Fund. And that is the side of our funding that is sheerly maintenance, and most of our paving gets done through our maintenance program. So we did some estimating on how long we thought that this COVID was going to happen. We're looking at the month of March and April, looking at what the reduction was in revenues, and then we recalibrated our budgets, and you can see that we're doing about half the paving in 2020 and 2021 than we did in 2019 alone. So that can change depending on how quickly we come out of this. We've already noticed that some of our assumptions were a little bit too aggressive, and that the receipts came in a little bit higher in April and May. So we may be able to do some additional paving, but there's going to be a lot of unhappy people because the roads simply need to be paved, and we don't have the money to pave what we were anticipating paving. So we are working with the municipalities, with the legislators, to let them know exactly which roads are going to be delayed. They'll still be paved at some point, but what we're actually hoping for is some sort of federal stimulus. ARTBA, which is some kind of transportation research advocacy group, they are lobbying Congress for a $50 billion federal stimulus program just to backstop state revenues, the loss of revenues for various state DOTs. Governor Wolf did send a letter to the Pennsylvania congressional delegation on April 17th that pretty much advocated the fact that we needed money to replace some of our lost revenues. So there really hasn't been action on this yet, but it is being discussed as a potential third or fourth round of COVID-19 related stimulus. So we're hoping that something's going to come through there, and then that would enable us to put a lot more paving out, depending on when it comes out, either this fall, next spring, to make up for those lost revenues and cuts that we had to put in. On a larger scale, long term, it's been quite some time since the federal government has done anything to increase revenues for transportation. So the Highway Trust Fund on the federal side is virtually bankrupt, and they've been borrowing against the federal general fund to help plug those holes. There is some renewed discussion that's been happening over the last couple months. I know the Senate just last year, Senate Republicans put in a funding proposal. Now this spring, you had the House Democrats that put one in. That bill is very, very high, and it would be extremely beneficial to state DOTs. It would encompass roughly a 46% increase in the funding that we have right now per year. And it would also give significant funding to our transit partners such as Amtrak and SEPTA. So we're hoping that Congress starts to get their act together, work together, and become a bipartisan, bicameral initiative to do something with the Highway Trust Fund. It is due to expire. We got into the situation where we were doing a bunch of continuing resolutions. They finally did 5 years ago do a new highway bill, and that's about to run out. So we're looking at either a 5 or 6 year bill, and we're just hoping that it's a lot higher than what has been given over the last several years. Next slide. Act 89 was a huge boost in the arm for our program, both on the maintenance side and the capital side of our funding. It provided $2.4 billion by the year 2018, so it went into effect 2013. Ramped up over a 5-year period, and in 2018 it fully matured, giving us an additional $2.4 billion. That was huge because our annual letting program for PennDOT was $1.6 billion per year. With Act 89, we were able to take it up to 2.4 billion. So that's the number of projects that we were putting out on the street for bid. So it didn't quite double it, but it did give a significant boost. With COVID-19 and our reduced revenues, we now had to lower it back to 1.8, but under normal circumstances, we're striving between 2.4 and 2.5 billion per year. So Act 89 was very instrumental in almost doubling our construction program. You know, we just need more federal money. But I will show you the next slide that shows just what Act 89 did for us. It seemed like a game changer, but you'll see in the grand scheme of things that we need more. So next slide, please. All right, so this particular slide, can you advance one more? There you go. All right, so you'll look, the green is what we have in revenues, the orange is the gap in funding revenues. So back in 2010, there was a study that was done by what was called the TFAC, Transportation Funding Advisory Council, under Governor Corbett. You know, they looked at what the necessary requirements were for PennDOT to maintain its existing network. And you'll see, you know, the green is what we had in funding at that time, the orange was the gap. So there was a $3.5 billion gap. Over time, without transportation revenue enhancement, that gap continues to grow. So that's why you see that line going up. You'll see that the green line actually trends down from 2010 to 2020. And basically what that institutes is a loss in revenue based on the fuel efficiency of cars. Since most of the federal money and state money comes from a gas tax revenue, with the fuel efficiency of vehicles, we're actually collecting less revenue. So the gap is growing, the revenue is being reduced. Then you have that green wedge in between, which is what Act 89 gave us. That obviously started out at 0 in 2013, and I mentioned before it was a 5-year maturation. So it increased steadily over 5 years. Then once you hit 5 years, it levels off. So I think the 5 years was 2018, and now it's level again. So you can see, if I could move this dialog box, hold on. All right, so you can see that there was, without Act 89, we would have had a $7.2 billion gap. As I stated before, Act 89 gave us, I think, around 2 billion or something. So it looks like we're around 4.8 the unmet need right now. So I can't underscore the importance of having the federal government come through and increasing funding, because we've been stagnant for a very, very long time with federal funding. We've even had to force moving some of our local monies that DVRPC gets and moving them over into the statewide tip to cover interstate needs, because we're just not getting enough money from the federal government. So what that's going to do is it's going to, you know, produce more money statewide for interstate needs, get a lot of those projects going, but it's gonna be a cost to the local tip. So it's going to impact some of the other local projects that would have been funded under the DVRPC tip. So I just wanted to share this slide so that everybody understands what our needs are, and what our funding situation is today. And I believe that's our last slide. So I ended with the good news. So talked about a lot of the major investments that Delaware County is getting, some really top-notch, well-needed projects, but we could do so much more if we had additional funding. So Cecile, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you very much.
We have a few questions for you, and in the interest of time, I'm only going to be able to ask you a couple. I'm going to combine these two. Does the district have any designated carpool lanes and any plans to add designated car parked areas?
So we do not have any carpool lanes, and we don't have any plans to institute any of those in the immediate future. We do have probably 8 or 9 various park and ride lots throughout the district. You know, there's one at the intersection of 476 and 23, right by Conshohocken. There's another one off of 202 in the area of the King of Prussia Mall, and there are other areas. So we do have many of those park and ride area, you know, lots that people can, you know, park, get in a car, and then be able to go.
Now, in Delaware County, I always say, what's a park and ride lot? Because we don't have any here.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting question. Are there any plans for PennDOT to start charging fees to use state roads?
So we put out an advertisement for a consultant to come in and help us to figure out what this, absence of anything happening from the federal side of the house. What should transportation funding look like in the future? So there were a couple reports that were done, one in the southeastern part of Pennsylvania, one in the western part of Pennsylvania, that talks about the opportunity for tolling different roadways. There are some strategies that are out there to put a small toll on every interstate highway in Pennsylvania. There are other strategies out there to toll select large pieces of infrastructure, but maybe something like the Girard Point Bridge on I-95. So we are studying that, and we're going through those gyrations. And there's nothing definitive that's coming out of that right now. Due to COVID, we actually canceled the second advertisement and didn't go through with it. But we still have a consultant under an older study, continuing to expand some of those options for us. There was another study that was going on that we were partnered with the state of Delaware on, and that was for a vehicle miles traveled scenario. So we actually had a sample size of people that signed up to put a transponder in their car. And what we did was we tracked their mileage throughout the course of the month. We had a vendor send them a mock invoice of, if they were being charged, by the mile as a toll, without gantries and without tickets and stuff, but it would be tracked somehow through Wi-Fi or something. And it was tracking their mileage driven. And then we'd send them the mock, and the invoice would show, hey, here's what you would spend if it was the traditional gas tax model versus here's what you would be paying in tolls for a vehicle miles traveled scenario. So I will say that, logically, if you look at that model, fuel efficient vehicles will probably be taxed more because they're not filling up at the gas pumps. And that's a problem for us. So they're using the roads, but they're not paying the necessary revenues associated with using and damaging those facilities. So that's just the way their funding works. It's gas tax based. Conversely, with the vehicle miles traveled, we might have a benefit to gas guzzling cars or trucks because they're filling up quite frequently, using a lot of gas. They're paying more gas taxes, and under a vehicle miles traveled, we'd somehow have to try to set the tolling rates for them to make it equitable amongst all types of vehicles. So that's in its second phase right now, that study. So I don't know if I answered your question, but we're looking at those different types of options.
Okay, thank you. And apologies to other people who asked the questions. In the interest of time, we're not going to be able to ask any more. So thank you very much, Ken.
No problem, Cecile. Thank you.
And I want to thank you all for joining us. And I especially want to thank the team at the Delaware County TMA. They've done a fantastic job. Terry Salvador, our finance director, Mary Ann Sandona is our administrative assistant, Tracy Barsavages, who started like 2 weeks before we had the lockdown. So she really got thrown into the fire here. She's our project coordinator and our backup producer today. Allie Striegel is our CTSP director and today's webinar producer. Allie, great job. Thank you so much. And Lauren Fink, our project manager. She is the one who puts our municipality conference together from start to finish. When she started this probably back in October, November of 19, she had no idea that we'd end up doing it in June as a webinar. She's done a great job kind of switching gears in the middle of everything. So I really appreciate the work she's done. And I do want to thank you, our DCTMA partners, for your continued support. I mean, no one would have guessed that telecommuting would become the standard for business in a day's time. It's a program that the DCTMA has promoted for years. So whether you've put a telework policy together in place years ago, or whether you had to do it on the fly in March, we hope that the information that you receive and continue to receive from us has been helpful. For the DCTMA to continue, of course, you all know, we want to educate and inform companies about the need for transportation demand management strategies, and your support and membership is vital. While we cannot have face-to-face meetings right now, and believe me, the staff at the TMA is trying to figure out how we will be able to do that and what that might look like in the future. So we are working on ways to bring our members, our partners, other agencies, and our sponsors together. So I want to again thank you all very much. Stay safe, and have a wonderful summer. Thank you.